The Appalachian Trail encounter, a hiker's nightmare. Phil had spent years hiking alone, documenting his outdoor adventures on his YouTube channel, Hike Slam. He had traversed countless trails, camped in the most remote areas, and faced unpredictable weather. But nothing could have prepared him for what he would encounter on a seemingly ordinary overnight hike in November 2021. What started as another peaceful trek into the woods soon spiraled into a night of terror, leaving Phil questioning who or what was out there with him in the wilderness. The first signs of disturbance. It was the night before Thanksgiving. The air was crisp. The forest eerily still as Phil embarked on an overnight hike near his home in Virginia. The only sounds were the rhythmic crunch of leaves beneath his boots and the occasional distant hoot of an owl. Everything felt peaceful, almost too quiet. Then he saw it. Scattered along the side of the trail was trash. Not entirely unusual, but something about it felt off. As he moved closer, his flashlight illuminated something that made his stomach tighten. The trash wasn't just litter. It was covered in writing, notes scribbled frantically onto plastic containers, scraps of paper, and old food wrappers. Song lyrics, unfinished poems, strange, disjointed phrases. The handwriting was erratic, almost manic, as if the author had been writing in a frenzy. Some of the messages made little sense, while others hinted at something darker. Ramblings about government spies, conspiracies, and cryptic warnings about people watching from the trees. Phil's gut twisted. Someone had left these messages here recently? But why? And more importantly, were they still nearby? He kept walking, his flashlight beam cutting through the dense darkness, illuminating more notes along the way. Some were poetic, others were disturbing. Then, his light caught something else, a dead duck. Its lifeless body lay limp and undisturbed, its feathers barely ruffled, as if someone had placed it there deliberately. Right next to it was another note. Phil's breath hitched. Whoever had written these notes hadn't just been scribbling nonsense. They had killed something and left it as part of whatever this was. A chill ran up his spine. He was not alone in these woods. The unseen presence. Phil hesitated, considering turning back. But he had come this far, and part of him needed to know more. Documenting eerie encounters was part of what made his channel unique. He continued deeper into the woods. The deeper he went, the stranger things became. The notes continued to appear along the path, each one seemingly more erratic than the last. The silence was suffocating. Even the wind had died down, leaving the trees eerily motionless. Then, ahead on the trail, he saw something new. A fire. His breath caught. A small, flickering flame not far from the trail. Next to it, a crude shelter made from a tarp and branches. Someone had set up camp here. Phil stopped dead in his tracks. The fire was still burning. That meant whoever was camping there was nearby. Watching, hiding, his fingers tightened around his flashlight as he scanned the trees. He felt it before he heard it. The sensation of being watched. A primal fear crept up his spine. Then, movement on the trail ahead. 2 women appeared, walking briskly with a dog. They looked nervous, their eyes darting toward the trees. As soon as they spotted Phil, they hurried toward him. "Have you seen the guy?" one of them asked, breathless. Phil frowned. "What guy?" "The one leaving all the creepy notes?" "And the dead animals." Phil's stomach twisted. So they had seen them too. He pointed toward the campsite with the fire. "There's a shelter just over there. Someone's staying there. Their faces drained of color. Can you walk back with us?" one of them asked, her voice shaky. Phil didn't hesitate. Something in the air, something primal, warned him that staying near that fire was a mistake. Without another word, he turned and walked with them back down the trail. Once they reached safety near their cars, the women thanked him. As they loaded their dog into their vehicle, one of them glanced back toward the trail and muttered, "We should call the police," Phil agreed. But even as he stood there, debating whether to turn back or go home, something deep inside him urged him forward. "You need to see more." So instead of leaving, he turned and headed deeper into the forest, searching for another shelter, one that felt safer. But safety, it turned out, was an illusion. The shelter log's dark secret. By the time Phil reached the next shelter, exhaustion was setting in. He set up camp, built a fire, and tried to shake the unease that had been trailing him all night. That's when he spotted the shelter logbook. Most Appalachian Trail shelters had one. Small journals where hikers left messages, notes about their travels, sometimes even jokes or advice. Curious, Phil flipped it open. The moment his eyes landed on the handwriting, his breath caught in his throat. It was the same handwriting as the notes scattered along the trail. In 2018, while I was incarcerated at the Okaloosa County Jail, Phil's hands shook as he turned the pages. The entries were filled with bizarre, paranoid ramblings, references to biblical passages, accusations of grave robbery, cryptic phrases about something hunting in the woods. Think grave robbery, Little Mrs. Wolf, JB and company, wicked schemes. Whoever had written those notes was here. Not just recently, that same day. A rustling outside snapped Phil's head up. He grabbed his flashlight and swept it toward the trees. Nothing. Then he noticed it. A half-empty Gatorade bottle dangled from a string on the ceiling of the shelter. A note was attached. Watch out for Yeet Mouse. The dead do walk and talk. Phil's breath came in short, uneven bursts. His instincts screamed at him to leave. The figure in the dark. Sleep was impossible. Every sound made his nerves snap to attention. And then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, moving toward the shelter. Phil's entire body locked up. He unzipped the tent just enough to peek outside. A lone figure stood in the distance, just beyond the reach of his firelight. A headlamp flickered against the darkness, illuminating part of the stranger's face. He was standing still, watching. Phil didn't move. He didn't breathe. Then the man took a single step forward. That was all Phil needed. He grabbed his gear, moving as silently as possible, every nerve screaming, "Go now." His heart pounded as he slipped from the tent and back toward the trail, his footsteps barely making a sound. He didn't look back. He didn't dare. By the time he reached his truck, his hands were shaking. He locked the doors, started the engine, and drove away, checking his rearview mirror the entire way home. Phil never returned to that section of the Appalachian Trail, and to this day, no one knows who the man was, or what he would have done if Phil hadn't left when he did. The quarterback who vanished in the woods. The unbreakable man from 2002 to 2006, Cullen Finnerty was an unstoppable force. A star quarterback, a 3-time national champion, and a warrior on the field. He was a man who didn't know how to lose, a man who played through pain that would have shattered others. Broken collarbone? He played through it. His teammates idolized him. His coaches shook their heads in awe and frustration. Because Cullen was a gladiator in an era when quarterbacks were supposed to be protected. But football is a cruel game. By 2009, Cullen's dream had slipped through his fingers. The NFL rejected him. He played briefly in Europe, then in a low-tier indoor league, but it was clear. His career was over. So, he built a new life. In 2010, he married Jennifer, a former all-state volleyball player, someone who understood his drive, his hunger, his unrelenting need to be the best. They had 2 children, bought a house in Michigan, and Cullen took a job in medical sales. By all accounts, he was happy. He was thriving. But something strange lingered, something that no one could explain. And on May 26, 2013, whatever that thing was, it found him. Memorial Day weekend. The last fishing trip. The Baldwin River in Michigan is supposed to be peaceful. The slow-moving water, the dense forests,